Hey, it's Dan here, and I'm with Fully Raw Christina. This is our annual video. We're gonna get together. Last time you kind of interviewed me, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to tell you that I just really appreciate the way you've treated me for, I don't know, 10 years or something, and just you've been very respectful and very supportive. And you let me be me, like, you know how it is with the comments. You do all the talking, shut up or whatever, and I do my fair share of talking, and you've always been super supportive. So, but today I'm gonna try, to challenge myself and actually interview you for once.
I don't know what you're talking about. I feel like you're so wonderful. Who wouldn't be supportive of you? And you're just so wonderful, Dan, and you have such a great personality. You're silly.
When we get together, by the time we get together and you start interviewing me, I'm like a boiling kettle because I've got so much that I want to share, but with the changes in social media and some of my own personal challenges, everything gets stuck right here. So I appreciate that. Was a cool video. You really brought out a lot of really great stuff, and I haven't even gone into it since. But today, I just wanted to talk to you. I've known you for a long time, and I know that. Well, I just wanted to, I just wanted to be a blessing to everyone today. You know that. So we've been like doing the raw food thing for a long time. You're 13 years in.
I'm almost 15 years
almost
in.
15
oh
years
my gosh.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, Dan, I honestly just feel like you have mountains and mountains of information to share, and you speak so passionately. I feel like every time you speak, it's a gift for people. So I want to just bring that to your attention, and just wanted to say that.
I think and I think the reason why is probably because I'm constantly educating myself. I'm constantly digging for new knowledge. I don't spend a lot of time on the social media scrolling, which is probably bad for my career. But what's good for my career is that this insatiable knowledge, it's almost like it's not about learning as much as it is about keeping my mind in the fields of knowledge and energy that I want. So like a master puts his mind where he wants it, because in this world especially, we could just get lost in every rabbit hole and rabbit track, and you could be so confused you don't know whether to go vegan, carnivore, or just stop eating altogether.
Right.
Because it's information overload.
It is.
So what I've learned I have to do is I've got to keep my mind focused on where I want to take myself and not get distracted. So that's my little tidbit of light for today, to keep your mind buried in the books and the knowledge and the people, and then unsubscribe from everyone who's gonna take you off track.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. And I know something that means a lot to both you and me is not just healthy lifestyle, but the conscious living aspect behind it, like getting really deep into all of the details of why this lifestyle is important and why it impacts not just us, but it impacts the planet, the animals, and just can change the world, right? And why this is necessary. So, I'll let you take it from here.
No, but I believe, you actually expand me a lot. I get a little narrow sometimes, and I think you're actually more of an example of many more of the broader aspects. And then when we hang out, you remind me, and you also inspire me too. Really, she's like super grounded in the social media stuff. Like, she's been through all the same craziness that I have, and I think personally you've dealt with it better than I have, but that's just my own perspective.
That's perspective for sure. I mean, there have been moments that were super hard for me, and I felt like it was just the end, like multiple times. But I think I remind myself in those moments that this isn't about me. Like, the reason why I began my journey was to educate people on raw food, healthy living, going vegan, why this is important. And that message is more important than me, right?
On the social media, you mean?
Yeah,
like
on the social media. And just like on every level, when I feel like I want to just quit or whatever, it's like it brings me back to that. I'm like, but wait a minute, people need this. I was able to reverse my diabetes by simply changing my diet, what was on my plate. People need to know that. There's so many people suffering from chronic illness right now.
Yeah.
And they can fix it just by changing what they eat. Not everybody, but the majority of people can, right? And so, I mean, why wouldn't you continue to share that message? Of course, you're going to get hate and criticism, and you're going to have people who put you down. You have to realize as well that the majority of people who hear that and feel threatened or triggered by it are the people who probably have the most resistance and who probably need that message the most. But change is so scary. Change is so ridiculously scary, and you have to be ready for it. And people who think that they can't change criticize and will try to keep bringing others down to a place that feels more comfortable to them because they feel safe in that space. So not only are you dealing with people's triggers, but you're dealing with this concept of what makes them feel safe and comfortable. And typically that's the thing that they've always done, and it's usually the thing that got them to that point of sickness. It becomes this cycle of sickness, right? So to get people out of that cycle is really challenging. That's why I say it's like raw food for me wasn't just a diet, it was a whole awakening, right? Because it's like I wasn't just changing what was on my plate at that point. It's like, all right, now I'm changing the way I talk to myself, the way I feel, the way I treat others, my compassion towards animals, my carbon footprint, what I'm wearing, what I put in my hair, what I don't put in my hair. You know, it's not just about the food, it's about so much more. And as you move through these layers and peel them off, you realize that deeper healing is possible, right? For you. And then you, like, all these things you didn't think were possible become possible for you.
Raw foods and awakening, living foods, I like to call it. Raw almost sounds unfinished.
Well, I'm fully raw, Christina, so I'm
Yes,
all
okay.
about being raw.
The brand.
Right, no, but I'm just saying, for me, raw is like, can mean anything, not just the food, but it can just like raw emotion as well, right? So
I guess I have resistance to that because I have so much range, and then there's the guy that I want to be. It's almost would be like, Dan, what's your picture? Just put a picture of Jesus on the wall, you know? And then it's like, how far away am I from that? Well, I like to punch that idiot in his head, you know what I mean? I'm thinking Jesus wouldn't punch the idiot in the head, you know what I'm saying? So for me, that rawness would be like, you know, to really embrace that. See, that's the thing. I mean, I'm so narrow. Like, I'm not raw. I'm just this little tiny guy behind the juicer, hiding behind the juicer, hiding behind cucumbers, because I don't really, it's hard for me to say what I really think. And there's several reasons. Number one, it's gonna stir the pot. And I'm just like, I just want to chill, you know? And then there's the other side of me that is aware that like silence is the only real truth to me, is just silence. Being, just isness, like awareness, just the watcher. And the content, you know, some days you're one way, the next day you're the other. One day you feel one way, one day you feel another. But the constant is the witness, is the awareness of the fluctuations of duality within a human being. And so for me to really open up, but the masters do that though, because one day the master will say one thing to one student during satsang, and then he'll say the exact opposite to another student. And then, so some of the books or some of the satsangs that were recorded throughout history, like one day he says this, the next day he says that, and then you realize it's about the context. Like that person needed to hear that, and that person needed to hear that. So when you're on this, it's like almost a one-dimensional camera screen. You can't just tell every person. This is what I've really learned, is you can't just tell everybody the same thing. There are some principles in life that are really general. Like if you go around punching people, everyone in the face that you don't like, you're probably going to get punched back eventually.
Oh
like,
gosh.
Right?
Most people.
So don't punch anyone in the face is a good general thing for everyone, you know? So it's hard to really come with like a fierce, passionate truth like I did when I was younger, which people liked, because I believed more in my belief systems. But now, and mostly I've learned this through doing consultations. like every person is so different. They all need to hear something different. The same Dan is there with his knowledge, but you know, I've learned that everyone is different, and the context is so different. So I guess that's part of the reason why I've struggled being fully raw with and like allowing what wants to come through in that moment to come through.
Is it because you don't like being called a certain kind of a label, or is it you just feel like you can't fit into certain confines more so?
I'm not really into the labels, and I, you know, anyone can label me what they want, but I don't want to label myself anything.
Right.
I just love the truth, and
Right.
I'm open to receive more of that and learn the hard way and the easy way, you know, whatever the truth is. So that's kind of the process that I'm in. So the living foods or the raw food diet, that's kind of the easy part. But the rawness of life, unless it's with my friends, that's easy for me. In my real life, it's easy. It's easier just to be, but then that's the same thing. I can look someone in the eye, I can feel their energy, and I know how to be with them. I know where they're at energetically, how far we can go down the rabbit hole, or how expansive we can go with the consciousness. So the video thing has been, you know, I mean, I love people, and I love the art of making video, and I love the truth.
Well, I think, number one, I think you're so hard on yourself. I think you're so hard on yourself. You don't give yourself enough credit. Number two, I mean, it is challenging because you never know who's watching, I mean, you could say A and they might hear B and misinterpret it, and then it's like, because they don't know you in that way and they're not with you and they don't feel your energy physically, it could, you know, as anything could be misinterpreted. Some people might take anything offensively. You don't know. Doesn't mean you have to walk on eggshells all the time, but yeah, I mean, there is such a thing as people who are mean on the internet. So,
and it's almost not thing. So it's partly that for one thing, but it's also like if someone does have, let's say someone does have diabetes, two people, one person's like, yeah, I bet you I could heal this, and then the other person thinks there's no way. Diabetes, it got me. It came and attacked me from outside.
Cancel clear.
You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what they word. I am radiantly healthy.
Yes, thank you.
And still repeat that over and over again and truly believe it, and it'll happen. But so I would be more gentle with this person. You know, I would be like, hey, okay, cool. So, and I'd ask them some questions where this person's like, hey, you're ready? Let me tell you what. You can get rid of diabetes in 3 weeks. Easy. Let me tell you how.
So, and the person who said, no, this isn't possible, at least you planted a seed. You might be a link in the chain, and a couple years down the road, they remember what you said and they decide to give it a try. I can't tell you how many people I have spoken to and have told me the first time I met them, this is impossible. This will never be me. A couple years later, I get a call. I'm excited to tell you I've gone vegan, or I'm eating more raw food, or I've started my own farm. And thank you for inspiring me. You changed my life. And I'm just like, drops the mic, right? It doesn't happen immediately for everybody. I mean, some of my ex-boyfriends like called me years after we went. They're like, you won't believe this, but like, I'm vegan now. I'm like, well, timing is everything, isn't it?
So yeah, I overthink it. I'll admit, because that happens to me.
But just keep in mind, I mean, how many times have you been in a place where you weren't ready to hear something, but somebody was telling you something, and then you, like years later, you were in the place where you were ready to hear it. You know, and it's like, that's where we kind of have to be compassionate with people, because we all come from such different backgrounds, so much trauma, so much hardship. And when you're overwhelmed in life, there's only a certain amount of stuff you can really absorb and really hear. And there are so many people who are just struggling so much right now in the world. Like, can't afford $25 to pay their next meal or whatever, you know? So I think it's just about being compassionate as to where you can meet people emotionally to help them get where they can feel like they're in a place of healing or coming into their true spirit. I mean, you know, blessed be the people who are listening to this message, because most people might not even know what we're talking about right now. They might not even be in a place physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually where they can even just hear this and think that this is an option for them. Like just healing in general, right? Being spiritually free.
Healing anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Completely.
Whether it's like, and a lot of times the block or the obstruction affects the financial, affects the consciousness,
Totally.
affects the relationship, affects the health.
But I mean, even just on a greater political level, and I'll give a really specific example. You know, I have my cousins in Lebanon have never been able to leave because they can't get a visa to leave the country. And they just had this massive revolution in Lebanon where they, you know, overthrowing the leaders of the corrupt government. And every time I go to visit my cousins in Lebanon, I'm like, why don't you go vegan? Their response is literally to me, oh no, the government won't let us. Oh, the second we get healthy, you just, no, not even worth it. That's their response, is that like, think about it. When people feel like they're controlled too much or they're oppressed too much, even just by governments, that's a massive level. We're not even talking about what we do to ourselves, but, you know, people can't be in the place to think that they could even become like in control of their lives, you know? So it's like you're breaking through way different layers of like massive outer layers all the way to deep inner layers to reach somebody to let them know that change is possible and healing is possible. The world is so much trauma happening right now. So I hope that makes sense.
No,
Does that make sense?
That actually was my favorite part of this whole last 17 minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
Because that is what I think we can give today,
Right.
is that, well, when you said, like, for some people it's hard to change. Like, I am a really very interesting character. When I hear something that is, you know, sounds like the truth, I have to start applying it right then and there, or I am a fool. That is my world.
And you are very unique. Very unique in that sense.
I'm beginning to understand it. Like Lou told me that years ago. He says, wow, okay, you read one book and you went completely 180 in one day. I just was a, you know, steroid taking, drug taking, bodybuilder, meat eater. But
And
one day I read a book and just raw.
And on the other hand, there are people who feel like they can't do something because of the greater forces that be, that literally they can't do it. But it's not even about that. It's just, I believe anybody can do anything. You just make a choice and you create steps and a plan. And to contrast that, there are people who are in the place where they literally feel that they can't because of the greater forces that be, right? Literally they can't. But I just want to let those of you know out there that change is possible and you can do anything you put your mind to. Doesn't matter what anybody else says or thinks. At the end of the day, if that's what matters to you in your heart, you put together a plan, you make the choice, and you really commit and you're dedicated to it. And I really believe that's possible for anybody. I mean, I'm sure you have seen so many inspirational stories of people all over the world who've changed their lives, changed their communities, even in the most pressing and unconventional of circumstances. So don't for 1 second doubt that you're not one of those people who can create change. And the best part about change is that when we change ourselves, everybody else around us benefits from that. It is a blessing. When we're better to ourselves, everybody else benefits from that blessing. And that's how you begin to change the things around you, change your community. So
I don't think there is any satisfaction in life without that desire to change something and utilizing that inner force, going inside and tapping into that, no matter what it is, whether it's your physical health, whether it's your financial health, whether it's your spiritual connection, whether it's your relationships. I mean, relationships, look how funky they are. But imagine if from the inside out you could look and take full responsibility, whether or not it's something inside of you that's attracting the wrong person, or something inside of you that's resisting forgiveness or change, or being able to create harmony or understanding and giving someone else like the benefit of the doubt, instead of trying to force people to be what you want them to be. So it's So that's what I want to leave everyone with, is that, you know, because I know that.
Yeah.
And here's what I also know is that, yeah, we might take a couple minutes on a video and make it sound like it's so easy. But I think that persistence is absolutely essential, because I don't know about you, but I have failed in my attempts to change far more than I've succeeded. And yet, you know, I'll go and it's going good and I'll get the rewards and the benefits of diet change or doing better in relationships or better with finances, and then make a decision that is, you know, detrimental, foolish, you know, folly, you know, and then I'll have a fallback, you know what I'm saying? So it's really been a matter of, when you're going to change something, the old habits, or what the masters call samskaras, the brain tracks in your brain, not only just the unconscious programs of childhood, which that's where the cement is, like those from 1 to 7, when your brain is just developing, and those there, it's very much at the animal brain, and then that becomes the subconscious. Yeah. And that's where that awareness, or that tapping into that inner light and being honest with yourself, like, oh, this pattern keeps coming up, even though I want to make more money or get along with my husband, I keep arguing with him. Why is that? And then you can begin to see that it's not only are there these tracks of consciousness through your experience in adult life, you can begin to really, those are far more malleable in my experience than those deeply embedded subconscious thoughts, like especially in relationships. That's a huge one. Or finances, I call it the blueprint. Yeah. That's your unconscious mind working. And like in this case, it's more of a, what are you worth? So I have to keep on, you know, what my time and energy is worth. And so consciously, I know it's worth more than what my unconscious is actually expecting. So then that's why I'm kind of like, been just stopping until I can get those two aligned, because I'm always like, God, you did not charge enough, and now you're bummed out, and you spent all that energy, and now you're exhausted. You know what I'm saying? So it's like everything has to line up. But lining up what you know consciously works as like a working person in this world, and you do the math on a piece of paper, and then you know, okay, it's worth that. But then the unconscious has a whole nother blueprint. And until those can line up, you're gonna, you know, so it's really a matter of, that's why meditation in the early mornings or in the evenings, so you can change your mind by programming yourself first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. But then becoming aware of those subconscious patterns, and then instead of getting frustrated and giving up, you understand that that's what those are. And then you celebrate, oh, that unconscious thing, and it's like a food thing. Like, let's say it's an unconscious pattern around, you're like, it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you're not hungry, and yet you eat. Why? Because you're all that family patterning, or just all those unconscious patterns. And then whatever it is you're trying to change, it might have to be one thing at a time.
Right.
And looking at those unconscious patterns, and then seeing the unconscious patterns and shining the light of awareness. Then you're like, okay, let's see what happens tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. I'll see if I'm hungry. And you can begin to watch those unconscious patterns, and then you can begin to anticipate those unconscious patterns.
So I just heard you talk about a lot of things, but just to clarify, like what I heard, you can let me know if I heard right, was battling feelings of unworthiness, right? And how to move about those. Like that, I heard a little bit of that come up. Also, maybe perhaps a bit of perfectionism, and I forgot the last one, but I could definitely tell, like, because you were saying, right, how do I deal with those feelings of unworthy when they come up? And then you talked a bit about meditation and being present with yourself. And I think it's just important to remind people, like, we all go through our limiting beliefs and emotions that we have that might pull us back or make us feel like we can't, we're not good enough, I'm not worthy. And it's also important in those moments to kind of remind yourself, nobody's perfect. We all struggle. Have compassion with yourself, have compassion with others, and maybe just ask yourself in that moment, how am I feeling and what would make me feel like I am worthy right now? And to start from there, right? And maybe even to pray and just ask for guidance in that moment, right? But that we're all worthy, no matter what. And if you can pinpoint an emotion to a past situation that would have maybe caused that for you. Why do I feel this way? Okay, well, when I was 3, X, Y, and Z happened, made me feel like I'm unworthy. I've been carrying that with me my whole life. If you can start remembering those situations, going back, blessing them, praying over them, you can begin to heal those moments in the past for yourself. That way, in the present, you don't have this cloud over you all the time, but you can start to shine and heal from these things, and you're not carrying around this huge sack of brick on your backs all the time. But
oh my God.
Right? Because I believe that that's how this programming works in our minds. So when you find yourself falling into this pattern and then you get on the hamster wheel, try and stop yourself just for a minute and ask yourself how you're feeling. Where did this come from? What do I need to change this? That's something that really helps me, and that's kind of my process when I go through when something like that comes up for me.
What do you do?
So I ask myself what I'm feeling to like really identify the emotion, right? Because if I know exactly what emotion I'm dealing with, I have a better idea of like what I need to give myself to kind of counterbalance it. And then I ask myself, okay, where is this coming from? And if I sit down and I really think about it, okay, well, I'm feeling this way because X, Y, and Z, and I kind of trace it back a little bit more past that day, then I'm like, okay, well, what I really need here is, could be love, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, either from myself or another person. And I literally sit there and I work through it. And sometimes if it's too difficult, I whip out a journal and I start asking myself questions and I write it down. And I have a conversation with myself on paper. And then once I'm done and I feel like I've had the answers come to me, then I'll sit down and I'll meditate and I'll process, and I'll just like let my subconscious process, or I'll let myself process, or I'll go to yoga and I'll let my body process, right? So many different ways of processing here. Well, I hope they're all following.
But the thing is I think what you mean, the most important thing is to be okay with feeling.
Yeah.
Really feeling it. Like that was the worst thing for me, was just any unpleasantness that would come up. I would do X, Y, and Z to escape it. And it was, you name it, all the way back. And everyone has their little crutches, and I had many, many of them. And I think that's where my life is getting to now. And I think that's kind of the gift that I've been able to give, is having a lot of escape mechanisms, is what I call them, escaping from unpleasant sensations or emotions or experiences. And then of course it's drugs, it's food, it's entertainment, it's relationships, so many things that you can do to avoid. And so at this time of my life, all I'm doing really is just facing this, whereas I've had little snippets of it. But then like you got kids and you got responsibilities, you're like, I gotta put this on the back burner for now. And then if and when you get to that time in your life where I'm at now, where it's like everything is way more chill and I have more time to just kind of fall apart and just feel. But then you can go about your day too and still do your work and show up to work and change the diapers and mow the lawn and still not escape, because you're like, okay, I could smoke a cigarette, I could smoke some weed, I could drink a couple beers, I could go have some Twinkies or a donut or a cup of coffee.
But those things you're mentioning are numbing mechanisms.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when you get more aware, you're like, I'm not gonna have the coffee. I'm not gonna have the cigarette. I'm just gonna deal with it, instead of the normal thing that the little cigarette gives you another 5 minutes of pseudo freedom. But it prolongs the inevitable, which is that one day in this life or the next, you're gonna have to face all this crap. So that's really the truth of it. So then I was like, okay, you might as well be wise and not a fool. you might as well just get rid of all these drugs and get rid of all the eating habits and get rid of everything, all the relationships or any distractions, and just deal with this. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's what's, I mean, I have more peace now and ease than ever before. And I can still feel some just from the camera, the social media, all this stuff, and I can see it there on me, and I'm gonna practice getting into a space where I can just, and just be.
Well, I think
heart.
you're there. I think you're there.
I just feel it a little bit, just a little bit, like, but not too much.
Yeah.
It's a little easier when I'm by myself, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is warming me up. I have a couple more interviews this week.
And for those of you who might be thinking, I don't have time to eat well, I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to figure out what I'm feeling, I just want to let you know that you can you don't need to set apart an hour a day to make those things possible for yourself. I have a Lebanese friend of mine that we joke when on our busy days we say we meditated on the toilet in the morning before we got our day started. Just sat down, had a moment meditation, and then got up and left.
Great idea.
It can be as simple as that, right? It's taking just a minute to check in with yourself, process, breathe, become present. And it's not about making the emotions stop. It's not about making your mind stop racing. It's not about not thinking. It's just a minute to check in and ask yourself, okay, what's going on? Or even just letting your body process. It doesn't need to be controlled. And you can check in with yourself while you're driving through traffic. Be like, how am I feeling today? It's a sucky day. All right, why is it a sucky day? You can do these things while your day is progressing. You don't have to like stop, go zen, put it on a pillow. And I mean, you can if you want, but for those of you who might be thinking, my life's crazy, it's hectic, I don't have time for this, figure out those little moments in the day where you can fit it in. I promise you can fit it in. While you're brushing your teeth, you can have a little, mental check-in. How was my day? How am I feeling, right? Or in the moments in your day where you feel like you just want to numb yourself, you're like, I'm just gonna mindlessly scroll through my Instagram feed, put down your phone and take a minute and just sit there and think about how you feel and what you could do to possibly feel better that day. What could you improve, So
integrated spirituality. And so, some people do great on the mountain cave, but then when they go down into the world, they're totally dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be able to do both, to be able to be in the cave alone in solitude and silence, and also take that same presence and go to the ball game, or even, the war zone where the machine guns are going off. That presence is your treasure. That presence, that awareness is, so you can be practicing spirituality 24/7, 365, because all it is just enhancing your relationship with the watcher, the awareness, the consciousness itself, and identifying more with the observation of everything as opposed to being so involved in the uppity downs, because it's always going to be up and down. There's going to be a good day, a bad day. There's going to be a bunch of money coming in. There's going to be a bunch of money going out. There's going to be, the relationship is running smooth. It's going funky. I mean, those things, but can you keep your poise and your peace and your ease? And so right now what I'm doing is just unclenching the heart. That's my big thing right now. It's just, and I notice it here too, but just a little bit, just not as much as it is. And so what I really want to just unclench and be, and then I feel like I'll be even far more effective on this social media. Nothing to prove, nothing to gain, because I think it'd be really cool if everyone just calmed down. We are tight, and I know what it's like. It's like, you're the most chill dude in the world. And it's like, well, you haven't seen my brain or felt my heart. But as you get more aware through the awakening of the live foods and the sensitization of the enlivening of all the cells and the consciousness, instead of sort of the dead, the dead is the numb, the live food. That's why it's so hard. And everyone's like, oh, I ate dead food and I felt so much better. Well, and it's this thing is, it's like, here I am almost 20 years later, still working it every moment, every day in the morning. And when became more conscious of it and made it a conscious meditation in the morning, and then I take that consciousness that develops these new pathways in the brain, and then you've got that awareness in your brain to go through the rest of the day. Then you can learn all day long and be present, and you'll make a mistake and you'll have a success, and you can just be aware of all of it. And then what you want to do in the path of perfection and ease and grace is to learn from the mistakes, the errors, the foolishness, the folly, and then, continue to develop and be quick to do good, to just do good before you have a chance to not. Help that person, help someone, do something, do good for yourself. Instead of, you could go over here and you could go to the coffee shop and have a donut, or you can go to the gym, and it's like, if you decide, and you start learning how to decide good decisions, things that are beneficial in the direction that you want to go, and you teach yourself, and pretty soon you actually have a really, really decent life, no matter how far down you came on the finances, on the drug addiction, on the degeneracy in relationships, and just, even though it's unconscious, you can really make a lot of progress. Now that I can tell you for sure, I'm always going to try to be gentle and yet firm, but I can tell you without a doubt, you can come from pretty gosh darn low in your consciousness, and you can keep working your way up to a really decent place where you have self-respect, respect and love from your community, and you have a good relationship with yourself, and your eggs are in your basket. And then all the comings and goings of life are, you can observe those. They come and they go, the relationships, the money, the health even, but you've got that relationship with yourself, and it's like the ability to let go and be the witness and surrender. Because that's what I see, that's what I'd like to, the direction I'm going to move, is helping people to just chill. Like, I'll just sit right here and be like, hey everyone, just chill, relax, because everyone's tight, super tight. And I've had to learn to unwind and relax, and I help a lot of my friends. They work, everyone's working, and then it's like, I'll take them to the beach or out for a walk or out for a hike, and I'm like the chill master, because I've had to. I was so tight that in order to get all this and loosen up, like a little soft little baby, we should all just be soft and easy, but we get all tight because we're trying to keep the whole world together. I understand, man, like, it's enslavement in a weird way. Like, we didn't set it up to where everyone was like, oh, we could just 3-day work weeks or whatever. It's like, we're doing 6-day work weeks, 10, 12 hours a day, and then at the end of the month, you get a cheeseburger and you get to take a nap, and then you got to get up and do it all over again. But we can do the inner work, and we can prioritize. We have a lot of power.
We do.
That's what we want
have
to
power
transmit.
over our own lives. I think and we need to empower ourselves more. Yeah.
I know you got an appointment.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thanks
I
for
just
coming.
love you, Dan. I think you're the moon and stars. Thank you. You have such a gift and such a blessing sharing with everybody.
This person's the real deal. So anybody missed? No, come on, man. We got them fighting words, you know what I'm saying?
I'm learning how to stand up for myself.
Wow.
I'm getting better. Before I was just not able to do that, but now I'm much better.
Yeah, but it's almost like when you get smart enough and you see that your enemy ends up destroying himself or herself.
You know what? Things take care of themselves.
They do.
I'll close with my favorite quote that I tell all my friends. Time heals all, time reveals all.
Yes, it does. So do good and be wise and be love and be blameless and be true and be real, and be as real on your social media as you are in your real life, and just be a real good person. And then the true life, the true God can bless you truly. And then it's not just an Instagram post that you look good, but you have a good life even when you turn the camera off, and people will see that. And that's the one thing that I thank God, is that me being real and actually growing and evolving and getting the diet and getting the health right and getting sober and getting clear, it was really real to me. You could fake it all day long, and we've seen the fakers come and go and ruin themselves. So, for the best, make it real. Make yourself real so that when you're by yourself, because to me, I call it God. God is the true reward giver, the true treasure. Not that people think, oh, you're so beautiful on Instagram, or your life is so wonderful on Instagram because you've got these photos of these beautiful waterfalls and crap. And then after you shut the camera off, you and your boyfriend are fighting. It's a bad day. It's grumpy. No, you want to be cool. You know what I'm saying? So bless.
Authenticity and integrity in everything you do.
Word.
In real life, online, everything you do in your business, in your personal, your relationships. Authenticity and integrity. Honesty, kindness. Let's add kindness to that. Authenticity, integrity, and kindness. Compassion when needed.
So virtuous living for the win.
Yeah.
And I know that you do that, and that's one thing she really inspires me, and she's just, not that many people really lift me up with their presence. I'm not saying I'm great and wonderful, but you've done a really great job at being a very good human being.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel the same about you, Dan. So thank you.
Our relationship is a lot of respect, that I have for her, and she's shown me the same thing. And so that's why I'm glad to spend a little time with you and get to know you better and make video with you, and thank you for sharing your your wisdom.
Thank you for sharing yours. This was so nice today.
Well, I hope you've been blessed. And if there's anything that we can do, let us know in the comments below, and we'll, if there's any questions, we'll do it again sometime, probably soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Aloha.